Are Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears are match made in heaven, and will he bring in an additional dancing partner? We'll give you the details coming up. In the NFL, we'll have one division up for grabs, while one playoff spot in another conference is soon to be determined. We'll give you all the details from yesterday's action. The Chicago Blackhawks are getting set to face the St. Louis Blues in the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve at Wrigley Field. The Chicago Bulls earned a victory against the Milwaukee Bucks, but it came at a cost. That and will salute Greg Gumbel, a Chicago icon, a broadcasting icon, and a sports legend icon. That and a whole lot more on our last show for 2024 as Second City Sports starts right now. Welcome to our last show of the year 2024. You're locked and loaded on in live in 11 color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Mr. Kim McGee, which is she. I am City Brown. You know that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, executes again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Look in, get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, even heading towards the new year, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools to build and be a boot.
Toodles.
Before we begin, whether you're watching us live or you're catching us on the replay, shout out to the replay gang or Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. We're always here for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And you know we will provide.
And we'll be providing you with some of the best here on Second City Sports as, of course, we'll recap of course, the Week 17 slate in the NFL, including some spots that are still decided, mostly seeding, but we'll get to all that in a little bit coming up. Of course, we will remember a broadcast giant, a groundbreaking broadcasting giant, and as well as the former president, commemorate the last old school TV Monday for this year. The Hawks are gearing up for their matchup in the Winter Classic. We'll preview the college football playoff, a little bit of conference play in college hoops, and a whole lot more. But first, I guess there was a report that came out. Of course, the current OC for the Lions, Ben Johnson, of course, apparently he wants the Bears job, and I guess the Bears, depending on who you talk to or who you read, is he's on their list as well. But apparently, he also wants, one of the conditions is that he wants Brian Poles gone. So I would, I think this whole thing, again, if there's any truth to this, because it sounds like there's a bunch of, secondhand information. So for me, I think this is, until I hear from somebody refutable, like this is all ludicrous. But, I have my own, thoughts on this. Like, we'll have our times to think about this, as the weeks go on. But it just seems kind of like, I'm sure he's not the only one. That's whoever, the Bears talk to, they're also not going to feel this way. So I'm just like, I don't want to give credence to this, nor do I want to kind of give it, time, because again, it's all kind of moot at this point, because you won't be able to talk to him unless the Lions, well, we'll get to, what they have to do, after their game against the 49ers tonight. But it just seems like it's just a bunch of, little info here and there that just seems secondhand.
Yeah, this is what you're going to get at this time of year. Second and third hand information, whether it's from the agents or someone within the organization. You're going to hear that phrase a lot too, as we're going to have potentially between 7 and 9 NFL head coaching openings, including here in Chicago, as far as who's going to be the top candidates, who's going to be interviewed for these jobs. But with Ben Johnson, just like anybody else who wants to step up to the next level, do you know if we know if they're going to be a great head coach? No, we don't because they haven't done it before. But uh, your more experienced head coaches that are out there, like a Mike Vrabel, bro, they can make those demands. You will listen to them. Now, do you have to give into those demands? Whether these organizations, of course, you don't have to, but you should listen. Remember, I we talked about the Pete Carroll report on our show last Friday, and I did make a case on why Pete Carroll should be considered for the job for the Chicago Bears. I'm not saying they should be calling for a press conference to hire him immediately. No, but he should be on the list. Ben Johnson, yes, the Bears should talk to him along with some of the other highly qualified candidates. You know, some has better resumes than Mr. Johnson, but does you don't know for sure what he wants to see actually interview him. So I'm with you, Lakina. We're going to hear stories like this, but until you know for sure, we don't know. But a lot of coaches pull this card out and to see what the organizations that interview will do. So basically, this is a power move. Whether it's true or not, we'll soon find out. But this isn't anything new, and we just have no choice but to wait and sit back and see what happens next.
Like I said, to be continued, as I always say when these situations occur. So, like I said, we'll get to all that, but first, let's get into some of the games. Of course, the good news is that the Bears, they didn't play yesterday. They already played on Thursday, losing to Seattle.
Yay!
They also, yeah, thank goodness I think for everyone seeing it, I think we're all fine with. A lot of Bears fans are fine with not having to watch a Bears game yesterday. We actually got to see some good football, and also too, we're gonna get to all that in a second. But first, we're gonna talk about Saturday's games as the Los Angeles Chargers of Southern California, we call them here on this show. They well, I guess all they had to do was win in their end, and they did just that, handily, just hammering the Patriots. It's the same Patriots team that the Bears lost to, mind you. So I'm gonna take that little. I'm gonna take that little crack there as well. 40-7. This game was already like over by this halfway through the second quarter. Justin Herbert had 281 yards and 3 TDs. J.K. Dobbins' first game back after missing a few weeks with a knee. He rushed for 76 yards and a TD as well. Lad McConkey, he was just cleared not too long ago. He's already making big dividends here for the Chargers. He had 2 TD catches, 94 receiving yards. On the flip side, Drake May did have a nice TD drive to cut into the lead, but it was all Chargers after that.
Yeah, I had this game on in the background. I had to run a couple of errands, and I checked in on it. I said, just like you, knew by halftime this game was over. And of course, the Chargers outscored New England 20-0 in that second half to take it home. This is what good teams do, especially at this time of year. You do not take your opponent lightly. You go in there, put your foot down, and don't let up. And that's what the Chargers did. All three phases of the game for the Chargers were on point: offense, defense, and special teams. And Justin Herbert, you could arguably say that he played his best game of the year statistically: 26 to 38, 281 yards to 3 touchdown passes. And they ran the ball hard, and you mentioned what J.K. Dobbins did. So the Chargers, they look like they are primed for the playoffs, and they took care of business with an early tough road game.
And look out, Bears fans. Jim Harbaugh becomes just the fifth coach to have double-digit wins in his first season with two different NFL teams, but only one of those to do so at the college level too. Of course, he won. Of course, he led Michigan to the national championship last year. Now he led the Chargers back to the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years, and of course the another game that will end up being the game of the weekend. The Bengals need to win and a whole lot of help. All the Broncos had to do was win. The former took place as the Bengals, thanks to Joe Burrow's TD pass to Mr. Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, I should say, who had a big 131 yards, and those three caught all three of those TD passes from Mr. Burrow. I'm talking about T. Higgins. As the Bengals beat the Broncos in overtime thriller, keeping their playoff hopes alive. On the flip side for Denver, they did. The Bodix did let a great comeback, but unfortunately, their defense gave up too many big plays in the end.
Yeah, and also too, going back to Cincinnati, Chase Brown, as I said on the show last Friday, that he's going to have to be a big factor in all this as well with the running game. I know he didn't have a great game, but he had a couple of key runs in that overtime period as the Bengals, you mentioned, pulled out the victory in overtime. Also, I mentioned too on the show last Friday, Denver has had a good year so far, but they need to go through some more tough experiences, and that's what happened last Saturday. As I told you, Christine, why I picked Cincinnati, the reason you saw it right there, they made a couple big plays late. Give Denver credit; they did stay in the game, but Cincinnati had the fortitude and they knew what to do down the stretch, and that's what happened. Denver, they'll learn from this, and they should, on paper, have a easy. I'm using air quotes here, easy path to clinch a playoff spot next week. Sweet, we'll get to that later. But Cincinnati just had that momentum. Their defense wasn't as bad as advertised, but that offensive line for the Bengals was trouble early. But Joe Burrow and crew found a way to overcome that and grab the victory in overtime.
Marvin Mims Jr. in a losing effort had 103 receiving yards and a couple of TDs, including that great TD pass, a TD catch, I should say, from Knicks to force overtime. You probably wonder,
That was
should they?
awesome.
Yeah, you probably wonder, like, should they have went for two? Knicks probably thought they should have, but again, that's a whole different story for another time. So, moving right along here, because we got just some time to do this last game that came on Saturday. As we get to the break, the Rams took care of business. They beat the Cardinals 13-9, and what was kind of a meh game here. 189 yards for Mr. Matt Stafford. Not his best start, but he didn't make any mistakes. 56 yards for Kyron Williams. 2 interceptions for Kyler Murray, and he was sacked 4 times. The Rams, of course, Puka Nacua had 129 yards, receiving yards for the Rams. The Rams didn't really have to do too much. They had a couple little hiccups, but it was the Rams defense. I'm not saying that they're like the Aaron Donald Rams defense, but they did just enough to pull off the win here. Of course, Akela Witherspoon had a great had a great interception as the time went out, because the Cardinals did have a chance to win the game and steal it, but Mr. Witherspoon had other ideas.
We finally got another Lakina McGee special for the second straight week. Yay! Yay! With the 13-9 score. No, folks, it's not a extra inning baseball game score, but you mentioned defense was the name of the game. We talked about the Rams defense being in transition with the retirement of Aaron Donald. They had the ups and downs so far this year, and they proved why they could be one of the best in the middle of the pack in the NFL. The Cardinals, unfortunately, this is a team that's been inconsistent all year. Kyler Murray, you mentioned 321 yards passing and a touchdown, but their running game was non-existent in my opinion. I know Michael Carter had 70 yards off of 13 carries, but you needed them to be a little bit more aggressive. They weren't. The Rams defense, as you mentioned, they were on point from start to finish, and they earned the victory, and they earned the NFC West Division title. We'll tell you why after the break, how that happened. But the Rams, we question some people calling them a sneaky Super Bowl contender. Well, that's still in question, but you cannot question them the way that they played last Saturday. Now earning the crown of the NFC West Division champions for 2024.
Cameron Key just had the other interception for the Rams. He and Jalen McCullough have at least 4. McCullough has 5. The last time 2 rookies had at least 4 interceptions in a season. You got to go all the way back to the 2017 Saints with Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Williams. So the defense, they might be dangerous. We'll see what happens when the matchups for the playoffs come out in a few weeks. But we're gonna take a really quick break. Of course, we'll preview yesterday's action in the NFL, including as Sid said, why the Rams ended up pushing the NFC West without having to play yesterday. Also, interesting question for the Eagles to ponder regarding Saquon Barkley for next week. We'll have that and a whole lot more coming up next. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports, Sports on Chicago Suns and Dubs for Week 17 as well, coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Monday edition. You're live in the 11 color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kingdom again on the Twitter, X and Kingdom again on IG.
As we continue our recap from yesterday's action from Week 17 in the National Football League, if you have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so more Week 17 recap. We'll start in upstate New York in Buffalo, or just outside Buffalo, as the Bills had no trouble with the Jets, 40-14. Josh Allen, 2 TD passes. Even Mitch Trubisky got in on the act, coming in late in the late in the third quarter, I should say, once the game was out of reach for the Jets. A rushing touchdown for him as well. Talk about Josh Allen as well as James Cook. 2 interceptions, I should say, for Aaron Rodgers. He got called for one when the second one he got called for another unnecessary roughness. So that was when when Jordan Phillips caught that second interception. He was also sacked 4 times. Talking about Rodgers, he now breaks Tom Brady's record as the most sacked QB of all time. I think undisciplined was what could be one way to put it for the Jets, but we got this game here in Chicago, and I kept it in the background, and because it was all Bills all the time for you.
Only saw a lot of clips of that game via NFL Red Zone. So what does that tell you? The Jets played like shit yesterday. The defense, as we talked about, looking at Um, it's a bend the don't break defense. They were broken more ways than one yesterday. The offense was even worse. But as we said during our pitch segment last Friday, Buffalo, all they had to do is take care of business. We know Josh Allen is nicked up. All they had to do is take care of business, get out of there with the win. And that's exactly what they did.
Yes, they did. So what they and also the Bills also successfully clinched the number 2 seed in the AFC, the playoffs. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll you'll figure all that out as it goes here now. Tampa Bay, again, they look. We thought that this was going to be a close game, with Carolina. It ended up not being the case. Well, it was for like maybe a quarter, the quarter. But yeah, 5 TDs for Baker Mayfield, 359 yards. Bucky Irving, 113 rushing yards. Mr. Mike Evans had 2 of those TD catches for him. Bryce Young, a nice effort in a losing cause, 2 TDs for him, 203 yards passing, but he was sacked 5 times. So the Bucks defense did their job there. Of course, Adam Thielen had both those TD catches. But yeah, so look, we thought that the Panthers were going to cover. It's a good thing we don't pick by the point spread here on this show. But what do you think about this game?
Right. I had this game on in the background instead of the Jets Bills game. And the Buccaneers and the Panthers, as you mentioned, they were in the battle in that first half. But the Buccaneers separated themselves out, scoring Carolina 21-0 in that second half, including J.J. Russell's block punt return for a touchdown, which kind of broke the game wide open for Tampa Bay. As I also said on the show last Friday, back in the first meeting this year between the Panthers and Bucks, Bucky Irving had a career day on the ground. He didn't quite live up to that yesterday, but still rushed over 113 yards and 20 carries. So it was all around great effort for Tampa Bay on all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and special teams. And they came out with a very important victory. We'll tell you why it was much more important later on in the show.
Yes. Just want to get this game out the way because our buddy Spiro Diaz, friend of the show, called this game for CBS. Jaguars and Titans, and the Jaguars for the second straight week beat the Titans 20-13. Mac Jones, 2 TD passes, 174 yards, including a great TD pass to Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah, it was kind of meh, for the most part. Mason Rudolph had a TD pass and an interception for the Titans. It was kind of mundane, but it was actually the Jaguars that made the big plays late.
Yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. is one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL. He showed that why he was once again yesterday with that touchdown catch. On the flip side for Tennessee, Tajee Spears, 20 carries for 95 yards. Mason Rudolph, 19-31 and 193 yards to the touchdown. One of the reasons why Tennessee is terrible. They couldn't really get anything going in the air. Jacksonville's defense actually stepped up yesterday, sacking Mr. Rudolph 3 times. So this is the best effort the Jaguars have had in a while. They are 4-12 on the year, but I think we'll probably see some household changes coming within that organization. Trent Baalke, their GM, is probably gone, and Doug Peterson, if he's not gone, he's definitely hanging on to his job by a thread. So, but we'll see what happens after next week.
Gonna get interesting down there in Jacksonville. Now to the Superdome we go, as it was all Raiders as they beat the Saints 25-10. And I feel for anybody that had to watch this game. Aiden O'Connell had 2 TD passes and 242 yards. Amir Abdullah had 115 rushing yards for the Raiders. Spencer Rattler in a losing effort, a TD catch. He led the Saints in rushing, 2 interceptions, but yeah, it was basically all Raiders.
Yeah, the Saints cost me my perfect week. Damn it. Another team did too. We'll get to that in a minute. But the Raiders actually played like a football team. You mentioned Aiden O'Connell, 20-35, 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. Amir Abdullah, 20 carries, 115 yards rushing. Brock Bowers breaks the record for most receiving yards for a rookie tight end, breaking Mike Dickens' record. 7 catches with 77 yards. The Raiders played a complete game for the first time in a long time. The Saints, they got a clean house too. and you saw that outside the second quarter, they really had nothing for the Raiders. That's all to say about that game. No, I did not watch it. The only live clips I saw was courtesy of Red Zone, to be honest with you.
Same. Yeah, and even then, I kind of kept in the background when they showed it. But yeah, it was just brutal for all around, to watch. Now, to a good game, well, not a good game, but a good performance by the Eagles, 41-7. It was all Eagles here. This was another game that we got a chance to see here in Chicago in its entirety. Kenny Pickett had 43 yards, I should say, and a TD pass, but he re-injured his ribs, so he had to leave. So Tanner McKee, the rookie came in, the late round rookie, and he threw two TD passes, including one to AJ Brown. We'll get to some of his. Well, let's just say he almost, it was almost made a couple of boo-boos there, but I'll get to that in a minute. Two interceptions for CJ Gunnar Johnson, including a pick six that started the game. That was the opening scoring for the Eagles. And Cooper Rush had a TD pass, and like I said, it was basically all Eagles.
And congrats to the Eagles for winning the NFC East Division for 2024. It was a great performance yesterday against a lesser injury-riddled Cowboys team. Excuse me. Let's not forget Devontae Smith had a great performance yesterday. 6 catches for 120 yards and 2 scores. Saquon Barkley was the story, as you mentioned. 31 carries for 167 yards. And the way that Kenny Pickett went out of the game, he had bruised ribs. We'll see what happens with him going forward. But Philadelphia had the Cowboys on their necks from start to finish. And this is what happens when something big is on the line, and they took care of business. We'll see if they could get healthy just in time for the playoffs, because many people expect them and the Lions to be in the NFC Championship game. Will that happen? We're a long ways away from that, but it looks like the Eagles, despite all the drama, despite all the foolishness we've been hearing from them over the last few weeks of the season, it looks like it was, for now, they put those distractions aside.
167 yards for Barkley, the top 2,000 for the season. He only needs 101 yards to pass Eric Dickerson's regular season rushing record. And they play the Giants. And what to do here? Now, Barkley, to his credit, said, look, that's going to be up to Coach Sirianni. So you wonder what to do. So what do you do?
If Nick Sirianni tells him he wants to play, leaves it up to him. If he wants to play, let him play. And hopefully, like I say, any time you step on the field, you don't want to tell these players this, but anytime you step on the field, it's a risk. So I know Philadelphia doesn't really have anything to play for. They clinched the division, as I mentioned. They may end up with a 3 seed. So they may end up still with a number 2 seed, so that maybe they still have something to play for in terms of seeding there. But if Nick Sirianni lets Saquon Barkley play, unless Barkley tells him, I don't want to play at all, you let him play.
Could be interesting. I'm sure Philly fans are kind of divided on this. So we'll get to all that later in the week here. Now, speaking of the Giants, they played spoiler for the Colts, you naughty Colts. 45-33. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Colts. Drew Lock looked like early Peyton Manning. Eli Manning, I should say, 309 yards and 4 TDs. Tyrone Tracy had 559 rushing yards. Malik Neighbors caught 2 of those TD passes from Locke, and 171 yards, including a big one that broke the game open for the Giants. On the flip side, Joe Flacco, 2 touchdowns, 330 yards passing, but 2 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor had 2 rushing touchdowns, 125 yards. Just inexcusable for the Colts. Not with Pat McAfee. I usually agree with Pat McAfee on a lot of things, but this is actually one of the things I do agree with him on, is that where was the discipline? Where was the urgency? I mean, we'll get to our studs and duds later in a little bit here, but what the hell happened yesterday?
Yeah, big thumbs down to the Colts. That's the other team that ruined my perfect week, but that's a whole nother issue. But the Giants, we talked about it last Friday on the show, Lakina. could have ended the season without a home win, but they actually played like a real team yesterday. They actually scored some points, unlike the Bears in their last home game of the year last week against the Seahawks. Amir Smith of Marset had that kickoff return, which really opened it up for the Giants to start that second half. In my opinion, I thought that was the difference in the game. The Colts played catch up, but this is like the great Bill Parcells always says, you are what your record says you are. And the Colts are 7-9 for a reason. They really got a lot of soul searching to do this offseason. Is Anthony Richardson going to be the guy going forward? I don't know if Joe Flacco is going to come back for another year as being the backup, even though he did put up great stats yesterday. But the Colts really have some soul searching to do to get over that hump, be honest with you. The Giants do too. We talk about them all year, but the Colts really have some soul searching to do during this offseason. They got a lot of tough decisions that potentially they're going to make.
Yeah, the Giants, they went from having the number one pick, being the driver's seat there. So now they might go all the way down to like 4 or 5. So I don't know how Giants fans feel about that. You take the win, you play spoiler, but well, you're not gonna get the number one pick. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. But you digress there. To Cleveland we go in the 3:00 games, as it was all Dolphins here as they beat the Browns 20-3. Tyler Huntley in relief of Tua Tagovailoa, 225 yards in TD. Also had a rushing TD as well. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for the Browns, only 170 yards and one interception there. Now Tyreek Hill had 105 receiving yards as well. So the Dolphins keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, you mentioned about Mr. Huntley. Tyler Huntley. He had a great performance yesterday. I had this game on in the background via the NFL Red Zone. I did not turn to the game in its entirety, not one bit. The Cleveland Browns, they looked like the Chicago Bears did last Thursday. Their offense was pathetic. They really couldn't get the running game going. Their defense, I know they made a couple of big plays, but it just wasn't enough. The Dolphins, as you mentioned, keep their slim playoff hopes alive. Tyreek Hill, he talked about not being happy in Miami. Well, ever since he said that, he's had his best two outputs in back-to-back weeks in terms of receiving yards. He had 9 catches for 105 yards. And I know he had a touchdown last week in their victory against the 49ers. So whoever is motivating Tyreek Hill, keep it up. Even though the Dolphins had the odds still stacked against them of making the playoffs, they still have a chance. That's all you need, right? Looking at a chance.
Yeah, you just need a little bit of a chance. And the Dolphins still do, although they need a lot of help and take care of business next week. But again, we'll get to that in a second here. Now, one of the games of the week, 27-25, the Vikings hold off the Packers. A career high 377 passing yards from Mr. Sam Darnold, 3 TDs and an interception. Jordan Love, a TD pass. Josh Jacobs had 69 rushing yards and a TD. Again, the Packers did make it interesting. So, you thought that, of course, with the defense and such, but they did cause a couple of turnovers there for them. And, I think the Vikings are 14-2. Nobody had them. Nobody had them going 14-2 this season. So, including even folks in Minnesota, but they'll take it. But what do you think about this game yesterday?
Yeah, the Vikings were dominant throughout at least the 3 quarters of that game. Sam Darnold, he bounced back after that early interception, throwing close to 400 yards, as you mentioned. Josh Jacobs was the only bright spot, in my opinion, in that Packers offense. As I told you last Friday on the show, Jordan Love's been injured all year. He hasn't put up the statistics as we expect him to do, like he did last year around this time. And that Packers defense, even though they did come up with that interception early, they just really couldn't capitalize on it. So, and by the time they woke up, the game was already out of hand. But we talked about the Minnesota Vikings wide receivers and Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson. Jalen Naylor came up big yesterday with a couple of huge catches, including the touchdown reception.
And that is big for the Vikings. We'll tell you why in just a second here. Now, another game of the night on Sunday night that ended up being a thriller, because we thought that it was kind of, it was a little bit rainy and a little bit misty, so it was kind of ho-hum just outside DC. But the Commanders, it was back and forth. They beat the Falcons 30-24 in overtime. Jaden Daniels had 3 TD passes and 227 yards. But he was sacked 5 times, so you got to work on the O line there, Commanders. He was also leading rusher. I'm sure, and much to said chagrin, he hates it when the QB is is a leading rusher for a game. Michael Penix Jr. had an interception, but able to overcome that. He threw for 223 yards in a TD. John Robinson had 2 rushing TDs for them. Yeah, I mean, look, the Commanders go back to the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years. Zach Ertz caught a couple of those TD passes from. Well, I'll tell you the significance of that in a second. But what do you think about this game? I know you got a chance to watch the highlights. So, what do you think about that game last night?
Jaden Daniels received the MVP chance from the sellout crowd last night, and the reason why is because that's the definition of putting the team on your back. Trailing 17-7 late in that second half, outscoring Atlanta 17-7, including 10 points in that fourth quarter. As you mentioned, he had that game-winning touchdown pass to Zach Ertz in overtime, and before that play, he ran on the last 3 possessions and basically he's trying to will his team to win that game. And we talked about Bo Nix having a chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think Daniels may have clinched that award last night with that heroic performance. So congratulations to the Commanders for going back to the playoffs for the first time since 2020 when they lost to Tom Brady in the eventual Super Bowl champion Buccaneers that year. But I kept not to bring us back to the Bears, Lakia, but you just wonder if the Bears would have hung on to win that Hail Mary game back in October. Would the script have flipped for the Bears to have that surprise this season? We'll never know. I think most consistent now, the way the Bears look now. Well, I don't think so, but you just never know. As we say all the time, it's a week-to-week league in the NFL. But the Commanders, as we mentioned, having a nice year. We'll see if they could become a threat come playoff time.
Well, like I said, I don't think it would have mattered, it had that helmet or not. I think that just look like I said, I think that schedule would have just came back to bite the Bears. So we'll never know in that front. But yeah, Jaden Daniels is the only QB in the last 30 years to go 5 for 5 or better. He went 6 for 6 on that OT drive, no sacks. And he went 40. He had that great 45 plus yards on that single drive there. He did in overtime to clinch a playoff berth. Just the only QB to do that in the last 30 years. So big, congrats to the Commanders and their fans, and everybody. Now, why is it significant? Well, because the Rams clinched a playoff spot because they had the tiebreaker with Seattle. I'm not gonna, it gets a little bit complicated. So bear with us. Straight to schedule and all that. That's how they do it. That's why the Rams, won the NFC West and they clinched the playoff berth. Now, if you're Atlanta, unfortunately, now Tampa controls their destiny in the NFC South. So they win in there, and we'll get to the schedule in a second here. But first, Sid, studs and duds for Week 17.
All right, my first stud goes back to Saturday's contest. Justin Herbert, the quarterback of the San Diego Chargers of Los Angeles, as we call him on this show, 26 of 38, 281 yards and 3 touchdown passes. As the Chargers dominate the Patriots 47 on the road to clinch a playoff spot for the Chargers. This is the first time in 2 years that they're going back to the playoffs. My second stud will go to J.J. Russell. He had a block kick, punt return for a touchdown for Tampa Bay as the Buccaneers roll on to dominate the Carolina Panthers at home, 48-14, and improve their record to 9-7 on the year. And my third stud will be Jaden Daniels, the rookie quarterback for the Washington Commanders, as we just talked about. 24-36, 227 yards and 3 touchdown passes, also 127 yards rushing off of 16 carries, as the Commanders clinched the final playoff spot in the NFC, beating the Falcons 30-24 in overtime.
Nice. My 3 studs, Mr. Joe Burrow, all-star, overcame 7 sacks. The O-line, that's going to be the killer there for Cincinnati. 3 TDs and 412 passing yards as he led the way for the Bengals, keeping their very, 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 tight playoff hopes alive. Like I said, we'll get to all that in a second. I'll say the Philadelphia Eagles, of course, they clinched the NFC East. And, with two backup QBs, they didn't really have to do too much. It was a total team effort, special teams as well. So, that was a great win. It was despite all the weirdness that's happening off the field for them. And taking the NFC East, since you had Jalen Daniels, I'm gonna go with Zach Ertz, who of course cooked those last two TD passes, going the clincher in overtime. Now, here is a little ditty here, Sid. He gets $750,000 in incentives. Talking about Mr. Ertz. Why? Because he caught his six TD catch this season. That's 250,000. He has 610 receiving yards. That's another 250 there, and also too that was his 61st catch this season. He got 60. That was the baseline there. So he has $750,000 in bonuses. Just in those last 5 minutes of that game. So, good to be in the NFL, I guess. And also, too, Jim Harbaugh gets $1 million bonus for leading the Chargers to the playoffs. So, gotta love incentives there. If you're, gotta love the NFL in 2024 with a lot of incentives.
Yeah, that's why people are fighting to become part of the sports professional world, in particular the NFL. All right, my three duds are as follows. One, the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Just like us Bears fans here in Chicago, I know Jets fans cannot wait for this season to conclude. My second dud, the Cleveland Browns offense, same thing, trash. And my third dud, it will go to just because I will say the New Orleans Saints.
Oh boy, go with the theme there with all the silly teams. Indianapolis, that's my first dud. What the hell happened? All you had to do was win. Win, as the song goes. All you had to do was win, and you would have been right there in the driver's seat for the AFC to be at least in the hunt for AFC playoff spot. Nope, you were not. So you let the Giants beat you. So bye to y'all. Let's see, another dud. I'll say the Jets too, just because you thought it could be worse. You could be a Bears fan, so there you go on that one kind of similarly. And Atlanta's clock management that last drive. I don't know. You had 40 seconds and 2 timeouts left. Raheem Morris, this is your first rodeo, dude. What happened? You had that after you had that great pass. I forgot. I think that was Drake London. He didn't go out of bounds, so he could have just took a timeout, could have set it up, get closer and closer to field goal range, and it is just really, and Riley Patterson, that's barely within his range. He missed it. He was welched 2-3 yards short. You didn't get a chance to touch the ball in overtime. Hell, defense make a play. So, but yeah, the Falcons, Now your rival, who you beat twice this year, now are in the driver's seat for the NFC South title. Congratulations.
And to wrap up Week 17 tonight on Monday Night Football, we'll have the Detroit Lions visiting the San Francisco 49ers. It's the rematch of last year's NFC Championship game, which the 49ers held off the Lions 34-31. This year, this year's matchup in the regular season of totally different story. The 49ers are eliminated for playoff contention at 6-9, an injury-riddled team. The Lions trying to keep up with the Vikings for the number 1 overall seed in the NFC, and perhaps the showdown next week against the Vikings will be for the division should they win tonight. So, as we talked about last Friday on the show, looking up for the Detroit Lions, you know what the Vikings did yesterday. The Packers did not help you out, so go in there, take care of business. Do not take anything lightly, and get out of there healthy as possible. Hopefully, you can come out there with the win.
And you sure that the 49ers are going to love to play spoiler for the Lions, especially after the NFC Championship game, especially. But like I said, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be interesting over there in the Bay Area. So it should be a fun matchup over there in Santa Clara. Now, of course, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Jeremy Reeves, the Commanders' Pro Bowl safety. He proposed to his longtime girlfriend Michaela after that game yesterday. He actually did admit that he would not have proposed to her if they had lost. So I guess I guess that might be probably a smart thing to not do. But double good news for everybody. So nice for them. Now, real quick, the schedule for Week 18 was released after that Falcons Commanders game last night. it's all AFC North. On Saturday, you got the Browns and the Ravens. 3:30 Central Time on ABC, ESPN, and you've got the Bengals and the Steelers. Bengals got to beat the Steelers to stay alive in the playoff picture in the AFC. That's going to be at 7 o'clock on ESPN and ABC. Sunday's matchups, you got the Bears and the Packers. I was so hoping for them to get the Saturday slot just because I don't have to watch them on Sunday, but I digress. That's going to be on Fox. Our buddies Proteas will have to call this game in the AFC East. You've got the Bills and the Patriots. You've got the Saints and the Bucks. So if the Bucks win, they're in. That's another noon game. You got Washington and Dallas. I'm sure Washington would love to get their revenge on Dallas from their matchup right after Thanksgiving. You got the Falcons hosting the Panthers. That'll be interesting because that's they gotta hope there's gonna be a lot of scoreboard watching going on down there in both Tampa Bay and Atlanta. You got the Giants and the Eagles. Will Saquon Barkley get a chance for the record? We'll find out about that. And the noon slate, you got the Jags and the Colts. And you got Houston hoping to say a little bit of effort, get a little bit of momentum going against the Tennessee Titans.
In our 325 games, a couple of note, the Seahawks and the Rams will be America's game of the week for Fox. Of course, we mentioned the Rams have clinched the NFC West Division title. Will they rest their starters? We shall see. In the game, Aaron, opposite of that is the New York Jets hosting the Miami Dolphins. Miami maybe they'll take when they take the field, they'll be out of the playoffs. We'll see. The Jets, this could be Aaron Rodgers' last game in the Jets uniform. We'll see about that. Of course, Sunday Night Football next Sunday. The Lions and Vikings for all the morals for the NFC North and possibly the number 1 overall seed in the NFC.
Nice choice there for NBC. So we'll see what happens with all these games. Like I said, we'll get more in depth coming up on Friday. But got to take a really quick break. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up here on Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. Our last show of 2024. Up next, we'll talk Bulls and NBA as LeBron turns a big 4-0 and the Bulls get a nice win against Milwaukee. And, of course, also the Hawks are giving up for their Winter Classic game coming up. And one of our good friends is going to be hosting it over at Wrigley Field. We'll talk about that and also a little bit of hockey as well as some records there, too. Of course, we'll preview college football's playoff. They're coming up, tomorrow. One game's coming up tomorrow, and the other's coming up New Year's Day. So we'll talk about that, too, as well. A little college hoops as they get ready for conference play. And we salute a couple of greats to wrap up Old School TV Monday for 2024. Lakeem McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Fun and action-packed hour 2 coming up right after this.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. You're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports. This is our last show for 2024. You're locked and loaded in live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. You know by now that is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kingdom again on the Twitter, X, and again, the IG.
As we kick off hour number 2, talking Bulls in the NBA and get into a little baseball talk here in this half hour, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments to the comment section. Again, we'll get them up on the screen for you.
In their last meeting, oddly enough, this is actually their last meeting for the season, unless they meet in the play-in. I'm talking about the Bulls and the Bucks. The Bulls got the best of the Bucks, 116-111. Triple-double for Josh Giddey, just his second or third of his career. And, look, I actually saw the highlights. He actually looked really good. I know he's been battling injuries for most of the season, but he actually did look really good on Saturday. And of course, he had 23, 15 boards and 10 assists, 15 points for Mr. Zach LaVine, 22 points for Kobe White, his best showing of the season, 23 for Vooch, and so much more. And a little bit some contributions about the bench. They actually made some defensive stops. Oddly enough, the Bulls did. That's kind of was kind of a shock to see. But yeah, so they'll go to 14-18. They face the Hornets tonight in Charlotte. So, Sid, what you think about that game on Saturday?
Well, as we talked about last week, when the last time these two teams faced, Giannis and Damian Lillard did not play, and the Bulls did not even take advantage of that. Damian Lillard played, but Giannis didn't. And so the Bulls did what they had to do. You mentioned they made some key defensive stops at the end of that game. But you mentioned Kobe White. I've been harping on him on this show all year through the good and the bad. It looks like he's starting to get his confidence back, especially offensively. As I said at the beginning of the season, I'll say it now. If you do not have that jump shot, take that ball to the rack, be aggressive. Looks like he's starting to get back to do that. Vucevic has been a beast in the middle over the last month or so. Maybe perhaps improving his trade value. We'll see about that, along with Zach LaVine. But I want to talk about Lonzo Ball for a minute. I know the Bulls didn't get much from their bench last Saturday, but in 19 minutes of action, Lonzo Ball gave you 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists. As we talked about, too, maybe he's improving his trade value. We'll soon find out. But we all know what a difference he makes on the basketball court. I'm talking about Lonzo. He's that Jason Kidd prototype point guard. If he can find you if you at your spot. He has great court vision, and he's not a bad defensive player either. So whenever he comes into the game, he controls the tempo, controls the pace, and that's what you need for a team like this. As the Bulls, as you know, changed their offensive philosophy this year. Congrats, you mentioned again to Josh Giddey with his third career triple-double. He had an outstanding performance, but the Bulls, as we talked about all year, is going to be about these young guys stepping in and stepping up, like Daley Terry or Julian Phillips and some of these other guys that has had the opportunities this year due to injuries and whatnot.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if the Bulls can keep this up. Like I said, they play Charlotte tonight. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. Like I said, the development I think is really the thing here for the Bulls, especially if you want to up LaVine and Vucevic's trade value. So we'll see what happens with that. And unfortunately, of course, no Io. He's going to be reevaluated. I think this week we'll see if he'll be able to play and be cleared later this week. So we'll see what happens with that, and we'll see if they decide to trade either Vuce or Levine. So that's going to be another thing that's going to they're going to be pondering that for the next month and a half or so.
All right. Well, here's the thing about before we get into the rest of the league. Here's the thing about that situation, Lakina. We said before the season started, maybe a quarter of the roster could be gone by the trade deadline. I'm not going to say it's not possible. It still is, but health is the number one question for this team, in particular Zach LaVine and Lonzo Ball. If Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley want to get the most value for those two players specifically, both of them have to stay healthy. I know Lonzo just came back. Hopefully he'll stay healthy for the long run until at least February 6th when the trade deadline due date is. So we still have a little bit over a month to go, 5 weeks. I think now 4.5 weeks if my math is correct. So we'll see what happens as far as that's concerned. Could the Bulls finally get to 500? We'll see, but it's all about building for the future with this Bulls team, and we'll see what happens going forward.
Should be interesting to see what happens here. Now going to yesterday's games. I know the Bulls play Saturday, but let's go to yesterday's games to kind of keep up with the continuity. Minnesota edged out San Antonio 112-110. Dante DiVincenzo had 26 points, which is a season high for him. And I'll get to a big comeback for Minnesota against Houston coming up in a second here. They did that on Friday. They made some history there. OKC pulled away from Memphis 130-106. SGA had 35 points, leading the way for the Thunder. The Heat beat Houston. Of course, they're in a little bit of a mini losing streak here. Tyler Hero had 27 points. For the Heat, Atlanta beat Toronto 136-107. Trae Young had 34 points. Tyrese Halliburton had 31 as the Pacers upset the Celtics. And Orlando edged out Brooklyn 102-101.
I want to go back to the Miami-Houston game last night. I saw the highlights via the social media. I don't know if you saw this, but Amin Thompson for the Rockets, one of the young players for the team. He got into it with Tyler Hero. He had his jersey. He had his hands around Tyler Hero's jersey. You could tell it was clearly frustration on the Rockets' part. Both of them had words, and then both of them scrapped all over the floor. Coaches from both benches came out. Mike Udoka for the Rockets got ejected, along with his assistant coach got ejected. Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, is going to have some fines given out because it got ugly. I know it broke up kind of quickly after a minute or two, but things really got heated toward the end of that game.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but I don't know if that was just frustration after what happened on Friday for Houston. Again, like I said, I'll get to that in a second here. But yeah, that was kind of a crazy sequence last night. So there might be some suspensions as well. So we'll see. Yeah, I know Al Silver is not pleased with that. So seeing these types of things, it's rarely that happens in the NBA. But yeah, when it does, that's not a good look for the league. So we'll see what he does, what discipline he maps out here. Now going to Saturday's games, the rest of Saturday's games. The Lakers beat the Kings. If you took the over on this game, we had a nice start to your Saturday night. Anthony Davis.
We'll get to them in just a moment. The Sacramento Kings. We got words for them in a minute.
Thank you for reminding me. Anthony Davis, it looks like his ankle's doing just fine. He had 36 points leading the way for the Lakers as they pulled away from the Kings. Portland upset Dallas 126-122. Shaedon Sharpe had 23 points. 46 points for Kyrie Irving and losing up there for the Mavs. They're gonna have to keep it up, with Luka being out for a while.
Yeah, Luka's gonna be out for a month for with a strained calf. So as I said on the show last week, Kyrie Irving is gonna be the man, but it's gonna have to be everybody else by committee, including Klay Thompson and everybody else. So those young veterans on that team is gonna do it by. It's going to have to be by committee because Kyrie Irving, even though he's so great, but at his age, just like LeBron, he can't do it by himself.
Break out the Sixers. The Philadelphia beat Utah 114-111, 32 points for Mr. Joel Embiid. 37 points for Nikola Jokic as the Nuggets had no trouble with. It was actually close for a little bit, but the Nuggets pulled away late there. Golden State beat Phoenix 109-105. Jonathan Kuminga had 34 points, 31 points for KD in the losing effort there. Steph did his same, but Kuminga, that was some weirdness happened there right before halftime in that game.
Yeah, as we expected, a great clash between these two teams. You mentioned Steph doing his thing. Devin Booker, with the injuries with that Phoenix has right now, they're going through it. So hopefully they get hold on until they get cover their guys back, as in particular Devin Booker. But the Warriors, they had that hot start to the season. They turned out to be fugazi a little bit, but it looks like they're starting to get that game back. I know they lost the previous game to the Lakers on Christmas night, but hopefully if you're a Warriors fan, this is kind of the win that you need to help turn your season around. But we'll see what happens.
The Knicks need overtime, but they held off the Wizards. I would have laughed had they lost that game. Now, 55 points for Jalen Brunson, which is not a career high, but it's right up there in their career high for him. OKC pulled away from the Hornets, and the Hawks beat the Heat. Not literally, but figuratively here. They beat the team 121-10. Jalen Johnson had 28 points there, and it was the Clippers that the Warriors lost to. Because I saw that game. Norman Powell had 26 points for the Clippers leading the way there. Dallas beat Phoenix 98-89, 20 points from Mr. Kyrie. Despite 35 points for KD there, they really need to get their guys back to the Suns because
this is Friday's results.
Yeah, so on Friday, but the Cavs and the Nuggets, Spida, Donovan Mitchell had 33 points. So again, if you took the over on this one, you had a nice start to your weekend. Nikola Jokic had 27 points in a losing effort there for the Nuggets on Friday. The Grizzlies beat the Hornets. The Pelicans, I should say. Look, like I said, if you took the over on this one, again, you had a nice start to your weekend. Jaren Jackson, you get 33 points for the Grizzlies. Minnesota was down 16 points going to the fourth quarter with less than 5 minutes left, which is just under 5 minutes in the fourth. The second time in the last 20 years in the NBA that team came back from that many points down to ultimately ended up winning it. It was actually Julius Randle that kind of started the run there. He had 27 points. So Minnesota, they're starting to get it going a little bit. Houston's, like I said, they lost last night as well. So they're starting to that kind of loss can you do one of two things. You can either perhaps maybe rally behind it, but at least like so far, especially after what happened last night, against Miami, Houston, they're starting to show a little cracks a little bit.
Yeah, this is where you need that key veteran like a Fred VanVleet or somebody to stand up in the locker room and say, enough is enough. You need to turn it around and mentally get all the bad juju out of that locker room, get back to the basics and focusing on basketball, because Houston's one of the best young, talented teams in the NBA. They played like it so far this year, like you say, except for this recent stretch here. So this is where you need that veteran to say, hey, enough of the BS. Let's focus on basketball. Let all the distractions and that silliness go, and let's get back to work and do it back what we need to do. Now, as far as Minnesota is concerned, they haven't stopped since they beat Dallas on Christmas Day, despite the injuries to Luka Doncic and all. Anthony Edwards has turned up, but it looks like Julius Randle is finally start to find his footing, find his stride, and have that chemistry on the floor between him and Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, we'll see. This is sort of a nice little run for Minnesota. Should be a good one there. I think this might be I think that win against Dallas, Luka or not, I think that might have started something, a little run here for the T-Wolves. So we'll see what happens there. Now, San Antonio beat Brooklyn 96-87. Victor Wembanyama had a double-double with 19 points and 12 boards. Now, he actually stopped off at a park in Brooklyn to play chess that went viral. I think about 50 people came. It would probably have been more, but it was raining. It was a little bit, it was a little bit warmer. It was like it was raining out there, so that was a really cool video that went viral. There, Wemby playing chess out there in Brooklyn, but even still, they got the win too, which is even better. I don't know if Pop. I wonder if Pop would have let him do that. Had he been out there on the sideline. Probably not. No, probably not. 142 points was a season high for the Celtics, with Jaylen Brown leading the way with 44 as they beat the Pacers. And the Knicks beat the Magic with 26 points from Jalen Brunson, 108-85 on Friday. Those are your Friday scores.
All right, before we get to the schedule for the next couple of days, I want to talk about the Sacramento Kings situation. Of course, Doug Christie, former player, is now the interim head coach for Sacramento. Before traveling to last Saturday night's game to take on the Lakers down there in Southern California, the ownership called Mike Brown on his way to the airport and told them that he was fired. Of course, word got out the way that he was fired after the Kings' slow start to the season. And Mike Malone, who's the current head coach of the Denver Nuggets, remember he coached in Sacramento back in the day through the whole DeMarcus Cousins fiasco. And he basically backed up what some folks around the league were saying. Like, I coached there, and they treated me the same way when they gave me the boot. So things are not going well for the Sacramento in their front office right now. I know they made it back to the playoffs a couple of years ago, took the Warriors to 7 games. They fell short of making it back to the playoffs last year, losing in the play-in tournament game. So you thought that Sacramento had things back on track. Well, they just took another big step back of the way they fired Mike Brown.
Yeah, they basically Eberflused him, as I called it, and that was not a classy thing for. Look, I know the Kings. Look, I get it. I know that this, they haven't. Look, they haven't. They've had a slow start this year. I mean, look, the Western Conference is a bloodbath. But yeah, I think the ownership group and the management there, they should have given him more time. Look, if by the end of the season, look, this guy was coach of the year just last season. So
just 2 years ago,
just 2 years ago he was coach of the year. So like, what the heck is going on here? But at least so far it's not. I guess it's kind of distracting to the players. So we'll see. But yeah, they've already lost their first game with Doug Christie at the helm. He played 4 seasons there, and it's still really a blow. I think he still lives in the area too. But yeah, we'll see if they can turn the corner. But if not, yeah, things are going to get interesting in Sacramento as they actually host Dallas tonight. Like I said, we get into the schedule here. They actually host Dallas, without Luka. So that's going to be the second game of the NBA TV doubleheader. So we'll see. They've had a couple of days to do on that loss to the Lakers. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, keeping up with the schedule, sticking with that, you got the Bulls. Like I said, they go on the road in Charlotte to play the Hornets at 6:00. The first game of the NBA TV doubleheader, you got the Knicks and the Wizards. No, I'm not repeating myself.
The rematch.
They're playing. Yeah, they're playing each other again. Yeah, I'm not repeating myself here. The Clippers face the Pelicans. Always interesting when those two teams play. Denver go on the road. They face Utah. Cleveland and Golden State. You kind of wish that this game was on
the rematch of those finals back a decade ago.
Yeah. No LeBron though, unfortunately, or Clay, but yeah. Then you got the Sixers in Portland at 9:00.
All right, you mentioned the Mavericks and Kings are wrapping up tonight's schedule on NBA TV. Tomorrow, Tuesday, New Year's Eve, your schedule looks like this is a light schedule. Toronto will face Boston and Bingtown. Milwaukee will face Indiana. The Clippers will visit San Antonio. The Timberwolves will play the Thunder. That's the lone NBA TV game of the night for New Year's Eve. The rest of the schedule, Memphis will face Phoenix, and the Cavaliers and Lakers will do battle in Southern California.
Yeah, LeBron's first game as a 40-year-old. Happy birthday, LeBron. He turned the big 40 today. Welcome to the 40 club, LeBron.
Yes.
Boy, that'll be funny.
All the time is undefeated. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, New Year's Day, the first game of 2025. You got Orlando and Detroit. You got the Bulls continuing their East Coast trip as they face Washington at 6. You got the Pelicans and the Heat at 6:30. You got Utah going on the road to face the Knicks. Brooklyn at Toronto. You got Dallas and Houston. Like I said, we'll see if Houston kind of get together here as they face Dallas. You got Atlanta and Denver, and Sacramento, same thing here as Philadelphia continues their West Coast trip against the Kings at 9 on Wednesday.
For Thursday, the normal schedule for NBA on TNT Thursdays return with a doubleheader featuring the Celtics and the Timberwolves, followed by the 76ers and the Warriors. Your other games scheduled for Thursday looks like this. Indiana will face Miami. Brooklyn will face Milwaukee. The Clippers will take a visit to Oklahoma City. And the Portland Trail Blazers will play the Los Angeles Lakers in Southern California. And that's your schedule for Thursday and for this week in the National Basketball Association.
You're listening to Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Let's go to the Diamond for a second. Sid Gleyber Torres goes to Detroit on a 1-year deal. The Tigers get extra bodies in the outfield. That's what kind of killed him. Even though they went on that great run late in the season, getting that last wild card spot in the AL, but it was really their depth in the outfield that kind of killed them. So you got to get a veteran in Gleyber Torres. So nice 1-year deal there as well. Teoscar Hernandez, he stays with the Dodgers with a $66 million deal for 4 more years. So look, he said he wanted to stay with the Dodgers, and look, they gave him what he wanted. He got a nice incentive, so a well-earned contract for Mr. Hernandez. And the D-bats and Corbin Burns, they agreed to a $210 million deal. Hey, Tom Ricketts, you said you wanted to spend like the D-bats. Well, they just signed an all-star, a Cy Young finalist for $210 million. So what do you say to that? What do you say now, honey?
Ah! You caught me red-handed. Ah!
Typical losses, as they say.
Yeah. As we said before, Lakina, Jed Hoyer, his job is on the line. His contract runs through next season in 2025. So the Cubs, if they don't make the playoffs, he could get the axe. And you are worried about Sammy Sosa and everybody else coming to the Cubs convention. You need to worry about finishing, completing, building your team. As we said before, we'll say it again. Part of the trade market will be the realistic option for this Cubs team. So maybe Seattle has a couple of stars that you could be interested in. Perhaps I'm just throwing this out there. I don't have any secondhand information, but maybe, just maybe, Dylan Cease out of San Diego. Just a thought. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think Cease has 1 year left under control with the San Diego Padres, so maybe she'll explore that option there. But as we said before, Lakina, great move by getting Kyle Tucker, but they still have a lot of work to do. And I know they just made a trade earlier today, trading their first baseman who they brought up last year, but didn't work out in Matt Mervis. They traded him to the Florida Marlins for a prospect. So assuming this is not the Cubs' last stand, what do you expect to happen between now and when they report to training camp in less than 8 weeks, around February 12th to 14th of February? What do you expect the Cubs to do in the remainder of this offseason?
Yeah, hopefully, they got the Vidal Brujan, of course, as a swap with Matt Mervis, a swap, former top 100 prospects. He had his issues as well. Also, they received, they gave him cash, talking about the Cubs to the Marlins. He's a shortstop, prospect. He kind of struggled the last, in the 3 seasons he was with the Marlins, Brujan. So I'm hoping this guy works out, because you traded one of your most popular players, in Matt Mervis. But okay, he's only 26. But okay, so we're interested to see what Jed does. Does he have another big, a big trade up his sleeve? Does he have another big signing up his sleeve? You still got some guys that are still out there, so we'll see. I mean, of course, Josh Bell, he reunites with the Nats on a 1-year deal. But yeah, I mean, the Cubs are just like it's just weird what they're thinking is. But hopefully they have another move up their sleeve.
Yeah, isn't Alex Raymond still a free agent, or is he off the market? He's still a free agent. Okay.
No. He's still out there, and of course, he actually had a nice win. He and Walker Buehler. He March of time they won big over the Santa Anita Stakes over the weekend. Their horse. So traded by Bob Baffert. So he had a nice weekend.
Yeah, speaking of Walker Buehler, he's now a member of the Boston Red Sox. I kind of like what they're doing with their starting rotation over there. It's him and Garrett Crochet, the former White Sox pitcher. So Boston's trying to build something there, but Alex Raymond still out there in free agency terms, so you could plug him up at third base. Johan Makata, if you believe the reports. We talked about him on the show over the last week or so. He could be a stopgap for 1 year. But Lakina, it's all about starting pitching, and given the fact what happened last year, good and bad. I know they had some guys like Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad filling in. They did a nice job, but you can't really bank on that again in 2025. You need a couple of starters, and hopefully Jed can pull a trade off his sleeve soon, because if they don't, it could get ugly real quick.
And also, congrats to Shohei Ohtani and his wife. They're expecting a baby later this spring. So I'm sure he or she's going to end up being expected to be a big athlete. So we'll see, because she used to play. His wife used to play professional basketball there in Japan. So of course, there's going to be a lot of expectations for him or her to be a top athlete. So we'll see what happens there. Now we'll take a really quick break. Of course, we'll talk a little hockey as the Blackhawks gear for their Winter Classic game, and also college football as the playoffs get into full swing with the quarterfinals coming up starting tomorrow. Little college hoops as teams start conference play, and we pay tribute to a couple greats in a special edition of Old School TV Monday as we did in 2024, and also our best moments for 2024. I guess it's gonna be a lot of national stuff because the Chicago teams didn't give us any this year for the most part. So the Key McGee City Brown Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. Final break for 2024 coming up. Some great stuff coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded and live in 11 color right here on Sports So Chicago. This is our last break of the show for today and our last show for the year 2024. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always look us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. If you want to get at yours truly via the social media streets on the Twitter X and the IG, you can do so at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and again, IG as Sid, the Hawks. Even though they had a tough loss last night, but they are gearing up for their game over at Wrigley as they host the Blues. And I'll finally get a chance to watch the Blackhawks. Hopefully I get to see some good hockey because the last couple of times the Hawks have been on national television, including last night. It turned out very well. So hopefully they'll put on a show for some of our friends over at Wrigley Field. Of course, they lost to the Stars 5-1, and yeah, that was not a good game there, unfortunately. But but yeah. So, but even still, I mean, look, if you saw the pictures, of course, Barry Butler does a great job capturing the gorgeous shots of in and around Chicago. You saw the aerial shot of Wrigley Field and the backdrop there, and just a beautiful shot. And our girl Alyssa Bergamini, of course, does who's the game host for the White Sox. Also, she does stuff for the Bulls over, and also other stuff too for WBBM radio and 6-7 The Score. She's going to be hosting, and I know hopefully she doesn't get too 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 amped up because it's Wrigley, because I know she's a Sox fan. But yeah, so it should be a great show, and it's going to be on national television again. So I'll be able to watch the Blackhawks. It's going to be on True TV. TNT is streaming on Max. So at 4:00 tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to this one. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. And I know Lakina doesn't have to bust out the antenna, so she'll be able to watch it.
Yay.
But yeah, even though the Hawks have not been playing well as of late, I know with the interim coach, they've been playing a little bit better, but not these last couple of games. I know Connor Bedard has been lighting it up. I think he actually scored again last night in their loss, but hopefully that it'll be a competitive game. I know St. Louis is on hard times too. They're not that much better than the Hawks, but hopefully we get a great game tomorrow. It's going to be a great atmosphere. It's not on New Year's Day; it's on New Year's Eve tomorrow. So it's at 4:00. So I know the fans are going to be charged up. I know these young players, like you said, is on a worldwide stage now, and so hopefully they'll be amped up, become prepared and ready to play. The last time the Hawks had a winter classic at Wrigley Field January 1st, 2009, and they lost to the Detroit Dead Wings 6-3 at Wrigley Field. And of course, we didn't know how soon that the young Hawks team at the time was going to get a Stanley Cup, but you knew they had some ways to go in that game. I remember that game specifically. They went up big, and of course, Detroit came back and scored 6 unanswered goals. I know times have changed now, being 20, almost 15 years later to the day. So the Hawks historically have done well in outdoor games. So we'll see what happens tomorrow in the different dynamic. But I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I know NBC obviously don't have the games anymore. TNT has it. I like that coach. We talked about it, Lakina, with our girl Rachel Kopchak. Paul Busy Biznet is a great analyst on there. Of course, you have Rain Gretzky and Liam McHugh who heads that coverage. I know they're going to do something special with those intermission reports showcasing this in the city tomorrow. So I think Kenny Albert and Eddie Olczyk, hometown guy, will be on the call for that. So for those of you locally in Chicago, if you get a chance to listen to it on WGN Radio with John Weideman and Troy Murray and Charles Romeliotis, they do a great job as well. Yep. So I'm definitely looking forward to this tomorrow. I know the hype isn't there with both these teams because of their records, but historically these teams are bitter and great rivals. So I expect a good physical game tomorrow. Let's see if this young Hawks team lives up to the challenge.
Yeah, it's supposed to be overcast tomorrow. I know it's supposed to be raining and it'll be raining, but it's going to turn around to snow in the afternoon. So could be interesting little aerial shots with all the snow going on behind it. So could be interesting what happens there tomorrow. But New Year's Eve. But yeah, it should be a fun matchup between these two teams. Even though they're still rivals, even though they're both very good at the moment. So it should be a fun matchup coming up now. I want to give a couple of shout outs to Mr. Alexander Ovechkin. Of course, he scored on his first game back. He's still, I believe, within 23 points of Wayne Gretzky's point record. So now that he's back, he's starting to kind of, get back into a groove. Maybe he'll pass, Gretzky. That'll be interesting. Hopefully, people will get a chance to watch it. Hopefully, it'll happen. I think they do have a couple of, national television schedules coming up for the Caps. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's good to see him back out there, for the Capitals and for all of hockey.
Yeah, we talked about it with our new friend Natalie Spalla out of Washington, D.C. as Ovechkin being one of the greatest hockey players to ever play the game next to Wayne Gretzky. He's definitely almost like a LeBron James type. He's the greatest hockey player in this generation next to Sidney Crosby. So he's a fun to watch. I know he's older now, but he still has great offensive skills. And we get an agely veteran like he does, it's not about the skills anymore. It's all about the knowledge and the mental of what you have learned and applying it. So, and that's what he's doing right now. Like you said, injuries have slowed him down a bit, but he's still in certain ways still a very good player.
Yeah, so still looks, like I said, he's kind of getting back into a groove a little bit. So we'll see what happens. There also congrats to a former player, now turned coach, Rob Brindamore. He got his 200th win as a head coach a couple of days ago for Carolina. So Carolina right there, they're third place in the Metropolitan Division in the Eastern Conference. So we'll see. We'll see if there are going to be some names that are going to be moved around. What they got their own trade deadline coming up. We'll talk about the NHL. So it'll be interesting to see who gets moved. I know Matt Kachuk's name's been thrown around, perhaps. Perhaps look, what difference a year makes, I guess. Go figure, because they just the Panthers got shut out by the Canadiens 4-0. Jacob Dobes actually one of their fine goalie for the Canadiens. He's actually done something that has not been done in a while. They have he's just joins a third goaltender in history during the Stanley Cup, defeating the Stanley Cup champion. In his debut, he joins Hal Wiggler, who did it all the way back in 1926. Don't ask me what team he played for, because this is all the way back in 100 years ago. But also Darren Pupa, who did it against Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers in 1985 after they won the cup. So nice showing. But Montreal's actually been playing pretty well. But yeah, Florida, there are some names that be thrown around, perhaps maybe in the trading block.
Yeah, congrats to Rob Brindamore. I still remember him as a player. That's how old we are. But but congratulations to the fastest to reach that milestone in NHL history. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina here with you. Let's turn the page over to college football. Lakina, round 2 of the college football playoff will take place tomorrow and Wednesday. But before we get to that, we had some controversy involving some of the bowl games last Saturday. Of course, Colorado got blown out by BYU 36-14. Shedeur Sanders did not look good. Well, that hurt his draft stock. And Cam Ward, playing only one half to attain a record, did not play in the second half. There's kind of all kinds of stories floating around. Well, that hurt his draft status. What say you?
Starting with the Colorado BYU game over in the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio. I mean, like I said, look, these two didn't play each other this year, even though they're both in the Big 12. This just so happens that this is how the sponsors picked them. The bowl organizers as well. And look, 36-14. I think BYU is just a better squad. Like I said, who knows what would have happened had they played this year in the regular season, but it's definitely kind of I was kind of surprised. I was surprised that BYU won, but I was surprised by the fact that they basically just hammered. Then Kalani Stakely, who is the great coach for BYU, is actually his 4th straight bowl win. And he said, look, we respect them. You saw the interactions he had with Coach Prime after the game, gave him a couple big hugs. He said, look, you guys are a great team, got great guys. But he said he felt that his team was being disrespected, and I think BYU kind of felt that way. So they played like they were a team being disrespected. So that's where you saw what happened there in that game. Now, as far as that Pop-Tarts Bowl, I mean, I feel bad for anybody who has to eat all those Pop-Tarts. I'm hoping that everyone at Iowa State, didn't.
Diabetes galore.
Oh, God, yes. I hope no one on the team will go good. But Rocco Beck, the great comeback, with the rushing TD that tapped off that game for the Cyclones. Nice win for him and Coach Matt Campbell. But yeah, the Cam Ward thing, I mean, this was always a plan. I know Mario Cristobal, I know he had an answer for it after the game, but this was always a plan, whether or not they had won. But it's interesting that once he, pulled himself out, Cam Ward did, things kind of went haywire for the Hurricanes. So unfortunately, that's how it ended up happening, and they ended up losing. Well, their defense was I think you need to look at that, Mr. Cristobal, because that was your thing. You won a couple of national championships on the defensive squad in Miami back in the day. Just saying. So. But it's not going to hurt his draft stock. I mean, if anything, I think teams will say, hey, at least you played the bowl game, you didn't get hurt. So yippee for good for you. So it's not gonna do anything to his draft stock. It isn't. Because remember, Malik Neighbors did it last year. He did it last year. He didn't play in LSU's bowl game, and look, he ended up doing okay. So just saying.
I always say this, and I'll say it again. Now we have the 12-team college football playoff. You're not playing in a CFP. You shouldn't play in your bowl game. I get it. It's a lot of money invested within these programs and within these bowl games. But if you're a potential high draft pick and potentially making millions and millions of dollars, you're not going to play in that game. Remember Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, some of those other players that weren't playing for the national championship. They set out their bowl games, and look how it worked out well for them. I know Leonard Fournette had his troubles off the field, but look how it's worked out for Christian McCaffrey. No one's talking about that now. So these universities, they say they care about these athletes. They only do until they get hurt, and then they throw them by the wayside. So the athletes are taking their power back. You see it now with NIL and the transfer portal. So any and everything that helps the players out protect themselves, I'm all for it. If you're not playing for the college football championship, you don't want to play in the bowl game, and you want to you're looking down the road at the big payday in the NFL. You shouldn't play. You shouldn't play if you don't want to.
Right, exactly. So, and nice of Coach trying to make sure that his son Shador and Travis Hunter, they and a few other players decide to leave to the pros. Get them the insurance over there covered in case something bad happened. The only thing that bad happened was it just got blown up by a better BYU squad. But I digress. Now, some of the other bowl games from the weekend, the Pinstripe Bowl, Nebraska held off Boston College. Dylan Raiola had TD pass, for Nebraska to return 24 yards. Ramiro Johnson, who just a month, Matt Rule said this after the game that he had just lost his mom to cancer about a month ago, and he kept, playing and, playing inspired. He had 59 rushing yards in a TD as the Cornhuskers got their first bowl win in a decade. I know it's been that long since Nebraska. Now with all those guys coming back, hey, look, they might do some damage to the Big Ten next year. A lot, I'm sure, the transfer portal and such. So we'll see what happens with that. UConn beat North Carolina in the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. TCU just hammered Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl. Congrats to the Miami of Ohio Redhawks. They hammered Colorado State winning the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl. You saw how much fun they had, with Snoop Dogg to present them with the trophy. I know the coach was just he was just having a field day. That was really cool. Now, our buddy Twan Staley, who does great work for the Jets, covering the Jets, despite their season for the New York Daily News. I know this is his alma mater, East Carolina. They got the best of North Carolina State holding them off in the Military Bowl. Army with their best, having 11 wins, their best ever, beating Louisiana Tech. On Friday, a late touchdown to Kyle Ford helped USC beat Texas A&M. I actually did not finish watching this game because I fell asleep. The game prepared until about like 1:30 in the morning, so I was gonna stay up that late. But we're back and watch it, and look, Kyle Ford, had that great TD catch. USC, the nice win, the bowl game, a much needed one of your Lincoln Riley. Arkansas beat Texas Tech in the Liberty Bowl. It was all Mr. Taylor Green. He had 341 yards. He also led the team in rushing. So nice showing for Arkansas, capping off their season. Oklahoma Oklahoma was edged out by Navy. Nice win for Navy there in the Armed Forces Bowl. Vanderbilt beat Georgia Tech. Syracuse, the Flying Dave Kearns, as we call him here, they beat Wazoo. Kyle McCord, 453 yards and 4 TDs in that game. Now, you got Iowa and Mizzou going on right now in the Music City Bowl down in Nashville. So you guys, keep that on mute as you're checking us out. And of course, some of the other bowl games. Got the Raleigh Car Quest Bowl, Raleigh Quest Bowl coming up tomorrow on New Year's Eve. Got Alabama and Michigan. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens in that game. The Sun Bowl.
What a difference the mirror makes for those two teams. Because last year we were watching them in Pasadena in the college football playoff, and now both of them been knocked down a notch.
Yeah, they can't stay away from each other apparently. Louisville and Washington, that's gonna be on CBS in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Should be a good one here down in Orlando. You got in the Citrus Bowl. You got South Carolina and Illinois on ABC. That should be a good one. There. I think South Carolina is a small favorite, but I think it's at a pick'em, so that might be
a favorite by 10 as of right now.
Oh, okay, South Carolina. Okay, they're not expecting much from Illinois. Okay, interesting.
Right.
Baylor and LSU in the Texas Bowl at 2:30 on ESPN. And of course, we got the first quarterfinal down in Arizona and Glendale for the Fiesta Bowl. You got Penn State and Boise State on ESPN. What's interesting to me is that how will Penn State's defense try to stop Ashton Genty? That's going to be the key here.
Yeah, and also too on the flip side for Boise State, how is their defense going to stop Mr. Dylan Aller Drew Aller, for Penn State So I think he announced that he's coming back next year. So
yep, he did.
So he's going to look forward to a big performance. I think Boise State is going to give Penn State all they can handle, but I think Penn State's defense, they're going to come up with that big play toward the end. I don't think it's going to be like like they did in the first round against MSU, because I think Boise State's a much better team than SMU. But it's going to be a tough battle. I know Penn State's favored by 11, but I'm going with the Nittany Lions in a close one. But I think Boise State will cover.
Should be a good one down there in Glendale. Of course, you got the New Year's Day games on Wednesday. You got Texas and Arizona State at noon Chicago time, and the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl down there in Atlanta. A little bit of trash talk between Sam Levin and Quinn Ewers, the QB, the two respective QBs. So, I mean, look, I think if you're Arizona State, you want to prove to folks that you do belong there, because no one really picked out to win the Big 12. Texas, you're basically just hoping to kind of like send a little bit of a message. So this should be a good one down there in Atlanta, I should say.
Yeah, if you're Texas, as I know some fans want to see Arch Manning, but I don't know if they're going to get there, which is besides watching him on the sidelines. But you mentioned with Arizona State, with Scatterboo and Mr. Jordan Tyson, their star wide receiver. They can put up some points, but I think Texas is just a much better team, and I expect them to win this game. Texas is favored by 13.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. You got the old-fashioned matchup here in the Rose Bowl. Two teams both played in the Big Ten now. You got Ohio State and Oregon. Of course, to that end, that early matchup in mid-October, where Oregon outlasted the Buckeyes. But it's gonna be interesting. It's a totally different matchup. And look, Oregon's been off for a long time, so that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. We'll see if Ohio State, Kyle Howard and Dylan Gabriel, that should be an interesting quarterback matchup. The running back, but it's really going to be the defense, I believe, is going to be the key here in this game.
Yeah, Oregon's defense must step up to the challenge. They kind of did that in that first meeting, as you mentioned, back in October. If you want to be 100 with it, as the kids would say, Ohio State should have won that game, but Oregon's defense did step up to the plate in the late stages of that game. But I think it's going to come down to whoever makes that big play down the stretch defensively. But I'm watching for Jordan James to have a big performance for that Ducks running game. On the flip side for Ohio State, let's see. You mentioned Will Howard will have a big game, because Dylan Dick Gabriel is going to bring it for Oregon, but can Will Howard match that and not turn the ball over? And Ryan Day, I still believe he's coaching for his job. And you know more about the college football than I do, Lakina, but I don't know why Ohio State is the overwhelming favorite. I know they're favored by 2.5 according to the folks out there in Vegas. But did you guys watch that first game? Ohio State should have won that game. If you base it on that, I can understand it, but they're not that much better than Oregon. They're not in my opinion, anyway.
Could we be surprised if Dan Lanning used that as motivation for his guys? Not that they need any, but yeah, I would be surprised if he used it as motivation for his Ducks players. So we'll see what happens in that one. Now, the other quarterfinal, you got the All-State Sugar Bowl down there in the Superdome. I'm not, Caesar Superdome, I guess. Notre Dame and Georgia. I know Notre Dame is. I think it's a pick'em. I know some people say the Georgia defense, of course, now that their quarterback is out for the year, so it's going to be interesting to see. Like, they're going to have to go by their running attack. So Carson Beck is done for the year, so that's going to be could we just see what it's going to be like a 2 QB thing for Georgia? We'll see. Will they go by the running game and just try to maybe wear out Notre Dame? Because remember, they're one of their top defensive stars. About Notre Dame is so. This could be the thing of whether or not who can kind of get the best of who here.
Yeah, whoever comes up with that big turnover, I think is going to win the game. And you mentioned you said Beck is going to be out for the rest of the year for Georgia. You
Mm-hmm.
remember he had his struggles early in the year. He's finally started to turn around before this injury, so that's a huge loss for Georgia. But I think they'll have enough to get this done. And like you said, I'm not going to say it's going to be a Lakina McGee special 13-9 game, but it could end up that way. Maybe 17-10, 2013, 2017, somewhere around in there to be realistic. So, but I'm going with Georgia, but barely here, and they're currently favored by a point and a half.
Yeah, so it's a pick 'em. So Jeremiah Love, they're gonna have to try. I'm talking about that Georgia defense. Got to try to slow him down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it should be a good one down there in New Orleans. Also, to the other bowl game. This will be on Thursday. You got Duke and Ole Miss in the Gator Bowl. That should be a fun matchup. There, although I think Duke, I think their QB is just transferred. So yeah, you got a lot of transfer portal folks. But again, I digress. So that's your schedule for the bowl games this week.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. Lakina, before we close it out with Old School TV Monday and some of our best moments of the year, which will probably be short, but yeah, give us your quick college basketball take. I know that the final line night, they did what they had to do, and which was expected. They crushed Chicago State 117-64.
Yeah, I mean, again, Northwestern State they took care of business against Northeastern. So, like I said, a lot of these teams are finishing up their non-conference plays. So, not that really much to really kind of talk about too much. Just going through some of the scheduling for this week. You got Houston or Oklahoma State in the Big 12. They start play at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus. TCU and Arizona, that should be a fun matchup there. In a non-conference matchup, we got Iowa State and Colorado. That should be a good one. That's gonna be on CBS Sports Network coming up tonight. Gonzaga, they lost to North Carolina. Now they're back in action facing Pepperdine, starting conference play in the West Coast Conference. So yeah, like I said, these are just mostly teams that are getting ready for conference play. Kansas and West Virginia. That's going to be an early game on New Year's Eve, over in Lawrence. You got Seton Hall and Xavier and the Peacock network. So yeah, like I said, this is mostly Marquette and Providence. That should be a good one tomorrow on FS1. Again, they start Big East play there. St. John's and Craylor. It's gonna be at Peacock at 3 o'clock. Va Tech and Duke on the ACC network. That should be a fun one. So yeah, a lot of these are early, for some of these teams have already started conference play. Miami, this is gonna be the first game outside the Jen Larranaga era. They face Boston College and DePaul. Here's your first big test, DePaul. Your second one, of course, you lost to Providence, but you got to face the defending national champions on New Year's Day at 1 o'clock, I should say, on CBS Sports Network. Yay!
We'll see. Lakina will be pulling her hair out by the time we get back on there on Friday. And that's your latest in college basketball. And down the home stretch right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. Lakina here with you. Before we get to our top moments of the year, which will not be much, but we usually close it out every Monday with Old School TV Monday. Today is a special tribute to two legends that passed away over the weekend. We'll start out with the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, who passed away yesterday at the age of 100. I was watching the beginning of the Packers-Vikings game, and Kurt Menefee reported that a half hour before the game was broadcasted that Jimmy Carter passed away. I know he was a huge sports fan, in particular a baseball fan. He was at a lot of Atlanta Braves games, especially in the early 90s when that team started to get it going. And he was the oldest living U.S. president until yesterday at age 100. Lakina, I don't want to get too much into the politics. That's up for other people that know more than we do to get into the politics of it. But just the way that he carried himself, the way he represented his family, and the way he represented America, but in office and out of office afterwards, you got to commend him and give him a salute on just a wonderful life.
Yeah, I mean, he held on as long as he could to vote in this past presidential election, and look, he did some great things. I mean, he was the first president to mention climate change. Now, I will say you're bring into sports here. You know, the 1980 boycott, the U.S. boycott in the Olympics in Moscow because of the hostage situation with the Iranian hostages. Unfortunately, I think that kind of was sort of like the death knell to his presidency. But even still, I mean, look, he took it with class and grace. He served with class and grace. He was the first president to start having athletes, and teams, championship teams, at the White House. Of course, Pittsburgh had a nice year that year in 1980, winning both the Super Bowl and the World Series during that time before he started his presidency. I'm talking about Jimmy Carter. So he kind of started that off. Like you said, he went to Braves games. I know I think he did have Hank Aaron. They did hang out for a little bit. I think he wasn't there. I don't think he was a governor yet when Henry Aaron broke that home run record. But they still stayed pretty close over the years. So like I said, he was just a class act all around. And just a really good guy, great humanitarian. Came from a small peanut farm in rural Georgia. Now he became, married the love of his life, and after coming back from the service, and ended up, serving president, and still a great humanitarian after all these years, even after he left the White House.
Yeah, so Jimmy Carter's legacy in the sports world and in the political world in U.S. history will live on forever. Of course, the other person, a legend that passed away over the weekend, Lakina, obviously it happened after we got off the air on Friday. Mr. Greg Gumbel, who was born in New Orleans, Louisiana, but he was raised here in Chicago, went to high school. He was a graduate of De La Salle High School. He passed away of cancer at the age of 78. He was best known for his various assignments with CBS Sports, of course, with the National Football League and NCAA basketball. He became the first African-American announcer to call play-by-play of a major sports championship in the U.S. when he did Super Bowl 35 between Baltimore and the New York Giants on CBS in 2001. That 2000 Baltimore Ravens team that won it all that year. Until 2023, Greg Gumbel was the studio host for the NCAA men's college basketball coverage and was a play-by-play announcer for the NFL CBS. Of course, he got his start in news of being a sportscaster here in Chicago for WMAQ from 1973 until 1980. Of course, he was one of the first voices you heard on WFAN. This I didn't know until the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary on Mike and the Mad Dog. One of the first voices you heard on WFAN was Greg Gumbel. And he used to fill in for Marv Albert on MSG back in the day. And he was one of the first, this I knew many years ago, that he was one of the first anchors on SportsCenter next to Chris Berman back in the day before he took off nationally. So he was a trailblazer, not just for us as African Americans, but for everybody as well in the sports television world. When you watch a Selection Sunday, even through what they have that partnership now with Turner Sports, you associate March Madness with Greg Gumbel and Clark Kellogg and the rest of those guys at CBS. He was the face of that coverage, and he will definitely be missed. I'll talk about some of the games that you should look for. Look for his work on YouTube in just a moment. But it was just a great life, a great career. Sadly, we lost him to cancer, but his legacy will definitely live on forever.
Yeah, it really will. And like you said, and I think others have said, I know James Brown said it, I know Kurt Menefee said it, and just about everybody said it. He was a trailblazer for not just for African Americans, but all people of color, because especially here in Chicago, the odd thing is that people don't know this. It was actually, of course, his brother Brian, of course, longtime host. I got Today Show and also Real Sports. We'll do that show at some point for Old School TV Monday. He actually told Greg about I think he was interning. He was in college. He was interning over at WMAQ, of course, on NBC Sports, NBC 5 Chicago. He was, Greg was actually selling medical supplies. That's how he found out. And Brian told him about the job over at WMAQ 5. And that's how he ended up, going there, of course, because again, this was a big trope, but you didn't see a lot of folks who like us, doing sports, especially for a major city like Chicago at that point. So he broke the mold there, and of course, I saw our buddy Mike Burford, of course, who's of course, he works there now too as one of their main sports anchors and reporters. They actually showed some clips of Greg over the years. In the 7 years he was here in Chicago, of course, he had that perm, which I know he didn't like that, so he just kept his spiral curling. But that was not a good look for him. But it was just a really really good moment. Of course, he went on to go to ESPN. I know Chris Burr. I know he worked with him a lot. Those 2 years he was there. He went to the MSG network, of course. Then he went to CBS. Then once then he went there for 4 years. Then once CBS lost the NFL, went to NBC, did the NFL coverage for a few years. When on 98, when CBS got the NFL coverage back, he went back there. Of course, he did Olympic coverage as well. Those the 92 Olympics over in Albertville. Of course, that was the cup of coffee that CBS had with the Olympics, the Winter Olympics.
Oh yeah, the Winter Olympics. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. He did NASCAR when CBS had it for a little bit. He did, of course, did the NBA. Remember, he did those last few years that the NBA was on CBS. He did those games.
Mm-hmm.
He did college basketball games, college football games. So he was definitely the dynamic. And I know I hearing some of the various, you can see Jim Nance, if you saw the Jets Bills game. So he was trying not to get choked up because they had known each other for like 35 years. Mm-hmm. And to you hear Trent Green, because the last few years, of course, before Greg retired, he did those 6 years with him doing games together. And I know I would applaud folks to go to Seth Davis's Twitter X account. I think he pinned on his handle that the story about some of the stories that he shared about Greg, and of course when he found out that he had cancer, that it wasn't looking good. He didn't want to tell anyone about it. Only like some of his close colleagues and friends knew. Mm-hmm. And just amazing. Of course, Tracy Wilson shared a story when she was intern at CBS. Of course, now she's the #1 side reporter at CBS now for the NFL and college men's college who's covered. She said she actually got lost at the studio there. So that was actually a pretty funny story. But yeah, just seeing some of this, how well liked he was and how professional he was. He never wanted to make it about him. And our thoughts and prayers go out to his wife, granddaughter, of course, his brother Bryant, and of course their sisters, the rest of the family. I know this is definitely a tough time for them.
Yeah, what a way for 2024 to punch us in the gut. But with any great host or announcer, they have iconic calls. I'll bring it home locally, and I'll do it nationally, then bring it home locally. Of course, nationally, as you remember, he was the second voice on the NBA on NBC, 95 through 96. In 96, I remember he did the two iconic calls that I remember him as far as the NBA on NBC. The 1997 Western Conference Finals, both Games 4 and Game 6. Of course, Game 4, Eddie Johnson hit that game-winning shot on Memorial Day weekend in Game 4, which Houston tied that series at the time at 2. And, of course, Game 6, where John Stockton hit that 3 to send the Utah Jazz to their first NBA Finals. Those are two iconic calls there, what he did for basketball. Don't forget, now bringing it home to Chicago, he did call, and I was actually at this game as a kid, but I remember watching it on replay on television. It was the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls, Game 2 at the old Chicago Stadium. It was him and Craig Buckner. Of course, Jordan got fouled hard against Greg Cadillac Anderson, the idiot. But Jordan came back. Of course, the Bulls won the game and beat the Bucks in 4. But Greg Gumbel called that Game 2 for CBS. And as far as the NFL on CBS, when they brought it back in 98, of course, he did. He was part of the #1 team with Phil Simms. Of course, he went back to the studio for a while and then went back out to the booth. But I actually watched this game last night. Remember the 2001 Chicago Bears that came out of nowhere 13-3?
Someone posted a clip of that call.
Yeah, that was the first. Remember, the Bears stunk at that time until that season, and this was the first Bears game that Greg Gumbel and Phil Simms did for CBS since they got the NFL back in 1998. The Bears were good that year. They played Cleveland. Of course, we all know what happened with Mike Brown with his second consecutive interception, return for a touchdown back-to-back weeks. That was a great call. But I think the better call was that game-tying touchdown with James Allen with no time left on the clock. I watched it last night. I was cheering like the game was actually going on live. And so, some of the great ones they bring the plays to life, and that's what he did there. And also to number 3, he was the voice of the 1993 American League Championship Series on CBS with the great Jim Cott. Of course, he was a big White Sox fan, but it was the White Sox in the Detroit. Not Detroit. It was the White Sox in the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yep.
Of course, Toronto would beat the Sox in 6 and went on to beat Philly for their back-to-back World Series titles. He was the voice for that series there. So he was a trailblazer, as you mentioned. He was professional both on and off camera. He was a trailblazer, and he'll definitely be missed.
Well, a couple of calls, I remember when he was doing college basketball. If you remember down in 1990 when Loyola Marymount went on that
Mhm.
magical run after losing one of their stars, Hank Gathers. In their upset win over Michigan, of course, Bo Kimball, did the left-handed shot because that was
Mhm.
how Hank Gathers, used to shoot his free throws left-handed. He actually was near perfect for those up until, of course, they got to the Elite Eight, losing to the eventual champion UNLV. And our buddy Antoine actually posted this. It was actually, I believe it was in '08 or '09. It was the Texans and the Jets. Of course, Mark Sanchez let him down the field to Santonio Holmes for that game-winning touchdown. And he kind of, it was quiet. He kept silent for like almost like 5 seconds. Just let the atmosphere, kind of, absorb it. And this just shows you how far the Jets have fallen after that. But yeah, that was one of his best calls. Very understated, kind of let the play and the atmosphere kind of did the talking. And like you said, he's definitely going to be missed. Like you said, this is a definitely, like when you saw the news, you're like, huh, really? And you thought, then
Mhm.
of course, various colleagues and various folks, posted. It was just like, wow, that was just awful. Especially, cancer took his life. I mean, that just awful. Cancer sucks.
Yeah, and just my one more personal memory for me. The first time I remember seeing him on television, it was the old NFL Today on CBS before they lost that
Mm.
contract following the '93
Uh-huh.
season. Remember, Brent Musburger was fired. He went to
Yep.
ABC and, of course, landed with ESPN later. But it was Greg Gumbel and Terry Bradshaw that would take over from 1990 until 1993 with the NFL Today. They revamped that show. It was
Mm-hmm.
still good. Obviously, it wasn't the same, obviously, because Musburger wasn't there. But Greg Gumbel and Terry Bradshaw both held their own there. And
Yes.
Greg Gumbel was a professional, got straight to the point. He had a little personality. He wasn't really known for that, but him and Terry worked very well together during those last few years of the original NFL Today pregame show. For you young folks out there, remember, though, before Fox, those network pregame shows
Mm-hmm.
were a half hour. Now they expanded.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And well, and I heard if you saw Terry Bradshaw, he was hoping not, he was trying not to hold back tears when he had his
Hmm.
various tributes and stuff. Everyone was, especially you saw the NFL Today yesterday, of course,
Hmm.
James Brown. If you guys get a chance, go to CBS's Twitter account. They actually posted, I think they still have it pinned. They posted a video, a nice long tribute to him, and how, what a trailblazer he was, and some of the great calls that he has had. So and also too, I think there was another one I wanted to say real quick. Crap, it was at the top of my head. Darn it. My old age is starting to show, folks.
Yeah,
But
happens.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you remember, like you said, with the with the NFL Today, those pregame shows. I mean, he definitely. Oh, you know what? It was the one. It was like 3 years ago during the NCAA men's hoops cover. That was Seth Davis shared this on his essay. That remember he and Wally Zerbeck, who I think he's still with MSG Network, doing
Hmm.
Knicks games, the pre and post, and also Clark Kelvin. They did that little dance with those little
Yeah.
those little figures at the bottom. Of course, you saw the
Hmm.
look on Greg became a meme. Of course he quoted old Altman Brothers hit, and he was just like, really. So yeah, that was actually a funny moment there. So he had his funny moments. So he kind of, like I said, he kind of let the analysts and the other people and the game guy do the talking, but he showed a little bit of personality every once in a while.
Yeah. Salute, job well done. Rest in power, Greg Gumbel.
All right, so I guess as we wrap things up here real quick, Sid, what were your best moments from 2024, sports wise?
The rise of the WNBA, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Of course, the WNBA becoming more popular, and of course, Caitlin Clark doing what she did to help elevate women's college basketball, women's sports in general. And shout out to Don Staley. I didn't forget the South Carolina winning the national championship over Caitlin Clark's Iowa Hawkeyes, and of course, Don Staley's team lost it the year before. She came back and they won the title. So shout out to those young women over there in South Carolina. I know we're up against it, but that's kind of the story that sticks out to me nationally for this year in sports. We all, as you said, everything locally stinks. So we've gone through that almost every show. So, but for nationally, for me, what stuck out is the evolution of women's sports, and in particular women's basketball. Hopefully, they can keep that momentum up going forward.
Well, yeah, and also I would say of course the Chiefs repeating, UConn men repeating. You mentioned the South Carolina women's basketball repeating. Scotty Scheffler and his big run there, winning 2 of the 4 Grand Slams. Let's see here, what else? Kind of like a change of the guard in men's tennis. With Carlos Alcaraz winning 2 of those majors as well. Let's see. And also all the Olympic people who did well for the United States. Of course, Noah Lyles win the 100 men's 100. Gabby Thomas winning 3 gold medals. The 200, both the 4x1 and 4x4 hurdles. Simone Biles winning her second all-around gold and 2 more gold medals there as well. Of course, U.S. Men's basketball winning another gold medal for them, and then the women almost losing it to France, to host France. They probably should have lost that game, but I digress. Scotty Scheffler winning the gold medal as well. So I'm keeping up with the Olympic theme here because, like I said, the U.S. actually did better there than expected. Well, not as expected, but I kind of of course, the U.S. women led by Trinity Robinson winning getting back the gold medal for the U.S. women in soccer. So yeah, like I said, I'm keeping the Olympic theme here because, like I said, most of the Chicago's teams here stink. So
yeah,
but on the bright side, I guess Mike Vrabel, his contract with the Browns is now over with, so he's now going to be going for head coaching jobs. Okay, so here we go. But
real quick, we'd like to thank all of our guests that came on our show this year. We have some new ones that has some returning favorites, so hopefully they can come back with us going forward for next year. And real quick, we'd like to thank Sean Sierra and Miss Maya Kai for everything they do for us here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with our colleagues with the What's Up Cuz and What's Up Cubs and the Smoke Fellas. Great shows. Of course, Sean and Maya in the morning. On here in Sports on Chicago, support us going forward. We will do better in 2025. So keep it here on Sports on Chicago. We love your support. Follow us on all our social media accounts. We'll give it to you in just a moment. We'd like to thank Sean and Maya once again for giving us this platform to do what we do.
Yeah, and hopefully maybe you'll see more content from us coming up in 2025. Gotta say too for that. Now, with that said, you follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, executes again on IG.
Also, shout out to the Chicago sports bums in the Section 108 from the White Sox community, of course, having me at their tailgates this year. So we're definitely going to link up again next year. Hopefully, we can get a representative from both of those groups on our program next year. That's definitely one of my goals. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. And thank you very much to our third co-host on the show on Fridays, Miss Christine the Queen Mango. We definitely didn't forget about you. She'll be with us, I believe, on Friday, correct?
Yeah, I have to double check, but yeah, I think so. So so I'll double check with her and see. But so for all of you, if you're gonna go out tomorrow, folks, please be safe. Look, you've got penny rides from buses and trains and cabs. The ride share are sure going to be offering reduced prices. Late tomorrow. So please be good. Be safe out there, and of course, just don't act stupid out there, folks. Enjoy all the games coming up, and here's to a great 2025. First, I'm the kids. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We'll see you guys next year.
Go Blackhawks! Happy 2025. We'll see you Friday, January 3rd. Holla!